Hello, 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 everybody. Happy Friend Friday. Gonna let folks get into the group. Thanks for coming. This is Friend Fridays. If you don't know, I am Mel Morris with Mel Morris Coaching. And Friend Fridays is all about bringing in my fabulous female friends to talk about what they're doing, what's going on. And today's no exception. I have a lovely friend who I don't know, I guess it's probably been a year and a half or so now when we got to meet each other, and she's amazing. She is a women's transition coach, and I'll let her explain more about what that is. And I'm also going to ask her about this title she has of Earthbound Angel. So without further ado, I will pop myself down and then pop us both up, and you will get to meet. Move me back. Ta-da! Lisa! Whoop, whoop. Hey, Lisa.
I know.
Magically pop your name over there. Boop. There you go. It's Lisa. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Wanda. Thanks for joining us. Lisa, what's up? I'm so excited to get to talk to you. Lisa does not live anywhere near me. You're in British Columbia?
Yeah, Northern British Columbia too.
Yeah. So she's like the opposite end of this continent from me, right? Because I'm all the way south, pretty much south and east. So yeah, we're pretty far apart from one another, but that's the magic of the World Wide Web, right? We get to connect with people all over the world. So welcome, welcome. Lisa, tell us about what it is you do, who you are, what's going on in your life.
Well, I am a transitions coach and I lead women through loss, divorce, messy life transitions into a place of true belonging. And I do that with the help of sisterhood and Mother Nature. That's why we get along so well. We both talk about the elements and connect with the elements in our work. And yeah, so really what brought me here is my life experiences, and I've experienced loss ever since I was a kid. My mom, she first got cancer when I was 1, and
Mm,
she had a double mastectomy. So even with that loss, that was something that I was her little girl, and it was really an intimate thing that I got to experience with my mom.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's so beautiful that I mean, I've seen some of your journey in growing, your business and really kind of focusing it in such a powerful way. And even for myself, like we talked a little bit before we came on live that, and this has been a year really, I think a lot of people, including myself, has thought about transitions in life, right? Not necessarily as extreme as death or huge endings, but just kind of how we need to readjust ourselves, right? And so I've seen kind of your journey, Lisa, through really narrowing the focus of working in this very specific, like transitional space for women. And I don't see it that often. Like, I don't see a lot of spaces where people are being intentional about helping folks go through those transitions. So what's that kind of been like for you?
I find it's very rewarding because like I said, I've had experience with all of it. And just being able to bring women from a place of loss, feeling deep loss in their life, into a place of joy
Yeah.
and lightness, and knowing that they can create a life beyond what had taken place. And even if it has been really impactful for them, that there is life beyond. And just being able to impact their families and seeing women going through divorce, creating new relationships where they are like completely adored by the men in their life, and just seeing that it's super rewarding.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. So that's a good segue, I think, for us to look at kind of the first card that we've talked about this week. So on my Wednesday woos and throughout these last several months, we've been going through this journey, these life lessons through the major arcana. And the three that we have today are the Hangman, Death, and Temperance. And so I was very intentional of bringing Lisa here today because this is like right in her wheelhouse of what transition kind of looks like, can look like emotionally, right, when you go through it. So the first being the Hanged Man, and let me see if my magical technology will at least let me split my screen. I can just put this up here. You know what I look like. So this is the Hangman from this week, and actually I'll shrink it just a smidge so people can see it more. So normally what this image kind of looks like more is like a person hanging upside down. But this is really kind of like this idea of, this self-imposed, recognizing that you're in a space in your life. So let's say, whether it's dealing with cancer or a relationship that doesn't feel in alignment, the Hangman really teaches us that not only do you have to kind of take a step back, right? Be really intentional with looking at the situation. But sometimes when we get stuck, it's hard to see anything else. And so with the Hangman, that messaging really is like finding a new perspective to look at things, right? Because transitions are going to happen, life's going to happen, endings are going to happen, right? But learning how to find another perspective on that, right? And I'm sure for the folks that you work with, Lisa, like I feel like that might be kind of that step one or two of, okay, shit's gone wrong. So now what? How do we even start to deal with that?
Yeah.
So what does that, what does that kind of look like for folks as they are, that you've been working with as far as starting to deal with transition?
Well, you did nail it. It is step 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's a
that
big process. Yeah.
yeah, taking a step back is really the first step, and going into the emotions of it and allowing yourself to really feel that grief and honor it.
Right.
And so I go through the seasons, and we start off with the winter season where you get to go in the darkness. You get to feel what it feels like, knowing that like the seasons, you're not going to stay there. So that's why I really like to use the seasons, is because it's a cycle. And it doesn't even mean to say that we're going to exactly go winter, spring, summer, fall, but it's just that like the tarot, it's another cycle, something to land on, to bring you back home, where you feel with transitions, you can feel very overwhelmed and lost, and just like it's all too much. So with the cycles, we can anchor into something. Yeah. And with winter, it's really like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to go into the void. It's okay not to have all the answers. And when you feel the pain of it, that's really where you can actually access the joy as well. And a lot of the times we want to bypass the pain, or even our culture wants us to do, because we're meant to produce, right? Like that's what our culture is telling us, is that if we're not productive, we're useless. Where I go against that and allow you to have that space to just really be in it. And then when you can actually feel the pain and move through the pain, that's when you can access the joy. Right. And then with the second step is where you're going into the possibilities. So that's the spring, where you feel like some renewness, if that's a word. You
Yeah,
feel
that renewed energy. Yeah. Yeah.
renewed. Yeah. And then where it's like, okay, well, what is possible on the other side of this without
Right.
having any attachment of what the outcome needs to look at. So it's
Right.
just really connecting with your values and like what you want this new life to look like, but in a very playful way. We're just accessing our curiosity at this point. It's not, we're not like writing it in stone. It's just a lot of play and curiosity into this new phase of living.
Yeah. And I mean, and I also, talk about, the seasons and those cycles and this idea that everything, even in these lessons, we're kind of going through them in a very linear way. But our life doesn't work like that. Our life is always up and down, up and down. And, the seasons are the perfect example because, we can feel it, right? We've experienced the seasons. We're heading into the winter now, right? The winter solstice is in 10 days. Mm-hmm. And it is that time of darkness. It's that time of, again, kind of stepping back and preparing for what's to come so that when the spring happens, right, like we're ready, we're rejuvenated, theoretically, we're rejuvenated and ready to start planting again, right? So yeah, I think we don't spend enough time appreciating the fact that we need that like winter season to get ready. Right?
Yeah, and seeds are planted in darkness.
Yeah.
Like they need that time in the soil to gather the heat and the nutrients and the hydration from the soil before they can sprout.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that is, I'm going to call that a good segue. That's a good segue to the next card as we think about, and this is more of like the transition, right? So when the big thing happens, let me switch over. So this is the death card. And I feel like, why is this so close? That's a little better. And so, this particular deck is a little dramatic with some of these cards, but for me, the death card is all about, it's about rebirth, right? It's about taking that opportunity. Let me switch back over to me. It is about accepting just exactly what you said, Lisa, like accepting that there's a change that's happening, something needs to happen, and acknowledging it and appreciating. I think of like, I've been divorced. I was married before and divorced. And, we avoid having those conversations about, like, we avoid the hangman scenario. We avoid going in and really reflecting because it hurts. And we don't, we go into denial about it. But then with death, I feel like, you don't have a choice, right? Death is like, this is going to happen, right? This thing is going to happen. How can you prepare yourself and appreciate what life was like before so that you are so ready and so much more for what comes afterwards, right? And so I don't know the numbers of your steps, but I feel like that next piece of it is, okay, the acknowledgement that like this thing is going to or has happened, and then what, so what's that look for you like for you in your work?
Well, this if we go back to the seasons, it's really summer is a time of where you feel full. So we really like lean into our sisters, into our support network, so that we can like feel that fullness and then ready to acknowledge what happened. You can't,
that makes sense. Yeah.
It's really hard to forgive if you're empty. So that's where I like to make sure that you're really full, and like back to the flower analogy, In summer, they're blossoming, you know, they have like their maximum amount of nutrients and they're right like as close to the sun as they can be. And then they're ready to shed their petals and their seeds, you know, so really letting go and honestly, a lot like rage can be a part of that, like acknowledging what happened. So, you know, just like getting into the acceptance, you almost like have to feel the anger and the rage of like, why the hell did this happen to me?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
really?
And I love that. Some, you know, I guess, and it's funny, I was trying to think, but I can totally see that now. Like even that idea, like shining the light, right? That sunlight, shining it so clearly on your situation and being okay with that, right? Like making sure that, like, that's, it's okay. It's okay that you're angry, that you're frustrated, that you're sad, that you're all the things. Like, let's bring it out into the light, you know?
Yeah, it's really owning your voice, and that's the thing. That's what I love about sisterhood and being around women. We're in a non-judgmental space, as you can really let those like voice those things and not be judged or criticized or even fixed. Like you may with your girlfriends, you know, like somebody always has to like has a good idea of what you should do, whereas in sisterhood, it's just like anything goes. Let's get it out, get resolve behind this. Like we're behind you on this, and then that's like where the forgiveness and through that compassion and gratitude can come or grow.
Yeah. Hey, Ish. I see Ish is joining us too.
Hi, Ish.
Love the seasons framework for loss and renewal. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is, you know, and I think the more that I do this work, the more that I have these conversations in different ways. I mean, seeing those cycles, and I'm sure you see this too, Lisa, like seeing those cycles in like everything, right? I mean, there's almost no situation that you can't imagine the full cycle of it, right? Beginning to end and preparation for what's next. And yeah, I mean the seasons are a perfect analogy of that. And you know, and I love the fact that, you know, you talked about being in that space, right? Like I'm very now focused on keeping people for a longer amount of time in that space of discomfort, right? We try to skip through that real quickly, but that's the part, that's where the magic happens, is when you are uncomfortable, when you are dealing with that shit, when you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you're, you know, and you have that support and you have people there. You know, a lot of times we want to try to fix it and make ourselves feel better, but that's not where we're getting that growth from.
Yeah, and really with your sisters, they're calling you in, right? Like I've totally been in circle with sisters and everybody's just like chipper and life is great. And I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll be sitting there all quiet, like, no, things today are not good for me.
Right.
But when you're in circle with women, they call you in, right? They're not going to let you just sit on the sidelines and not say anything.
Right.
You
Yeah.
don't have to talk if you don't want to, but at the same time, that's what we need a lot of the times, because when we feel those shitty feelings, I know for myself, I just want to hide. Like I want to just go and watch Netflix and not talk, and that's okay too. But you
There's a
know,
place for
a
it.
little
Sure.
while.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, it is. It is really important that, you know, that can't be the forever, right? And sometimes that's what, and I don't want to say I'm not on like a coaching bash or anything, but I feel like a lot of folks are again trying to just move you so quickly into this myth that, like, well, if you just, you know, come to this one thing, or you read this book, or you know, spend 3 months in this group, then magically like you'll be able to move from depression to joy, you know. And there isn't that, like, okay, I'm gonna let you sit with your shit for a while, but then we're going to also need to process some things, you know. So having, like you said, like that container, that space where there are people who are like, okay, girl, I'm gonna give you this week,
Yeah.
but next week we're gonna have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So,
And using embodiment practices too, like dancing or movement or shaking and
mhm.
different techniques like that. I love to use just to move the energy, because a lot of the things, yeah, we don't have words for it. Like I just feel like shit, like blah. Like I don't know why. Like
Yeah.
yeah. And a lot of people, coaches or your mom or whatever, maybe like, shouldn't you be over it by now? And it's
Right.
like, no, I believe grief, it does cycle, and like
Mhm.
feelings of loss, right? Like you get triggered by um smells, by like all these different things, and women especially, we feel, so all of these emotions, they are in our bodies. So if we
Mhm.
don't access our bodies to move those emotions out, then they really do get stuck, because it is hard to put words to it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, the reason why, I say a lot that death is like my favorite card, is because once you're able to, and it's hard in the moment, right? And so, I always try to encourage people to, like get as many of these lessons in, like pretty solidly before you run into a problem and need to use them, right? Like any other tool. Um, but once you get to that space of, acceptance, and whether it's forgiveness, whether it's whatever, it things to me just seem like so beautiful. Like you can begin to see the beauty in, again, kind of what you had before, and um, the potential. Like you can see yourself in this new way that is like, wow, I made it through all of this, and
Mm-hmm.
look at me now, right? So I'm so much more ready to handle, deal with, get through whatever's to come, right? And I think that's a lot harder when you're talking about like literal death of people, right? But it's still the same process when you can get to that point, right? It just, again, even like at the end of summer where like, okay, it was hot and it's sticky and allergies and whatever, but look at these beautiful flowers. Like look at these things that we've been able to produce. And even as we start moving into the fall and thinking about like harvesting things, but just look at what we were able to produce through that darkness, through that hard work and that hardship. And so yeah, it feels really beautiful to me, to be able to create those spaces. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's awesome.
sounds beautiful. I love your reflection.
Well, thank you. So then that moves us then to kind of the next of this series, which is the temperance card. And let me pop up temperance.
So
So what I really love about temperance is, and last week, I talked a little bit about like this idea of balance from the justice card, but temperance is really more about not just balancing, and bring myself back up, not just balancing things, right? But temperance is really like once you've gone through all that shit and you've gotten to the part where you realize like I'm a badass, like I made it through and look at me shine, right? Afterwards, that temperance really is that ability to again create something new. So sometimes we think that we have to get back to who we were after a loss or a tragedy. Like I got to get back to that person I was before. You're never going to be that person again, right? And I think and I'd love for you to speak to this, Lisa, like this idea that we're never going back. We're never going back to what life was like before COVID, right? There's no going back to that. We've hopefully learned some things, and now what we're doing moving forward is going to be so much bigger and better, and because it comes from our experience, it comes from the wisdom that we got if we took the time to appreciate the loss, right, and move forward. And so that's really temperance is about creating that harmony, like from from new places that we didn't even know we could get to before. And it took that loss. It took getting over whatever, that divorce or whatever, for us to see that strength that we have in ourselves. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, what does that look like for you when you're trying to get, folks there? Like, okay, you made it, and now what? This is what life is like now.
Yeah. Well, going back to where even after the event, after the loss, is just like taking that time to realize, like, who are you now?
Mm-hmm.
And honoring yourself in that moment, and acknowledging that you aren't the same person anymore. And well, we're never the same person, even from yesterday,
Right. Yeah. We tell ourselves that because it's easy, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and going into the like going through the process and coming out to the other side, where it's like, well, who am I now? And being able to let go of all of what you thought you were.
Right.
And that is the autumn, like the well, not the final season, but the final one I'll speak to, is
Yeah.
really understanding like what it is you now want in your life and who you are going forward, and letting all of the other shit go.
Right.
And really claiming that, like claiming your worth, claiming your value as you step into this new life that you get to create based on all of the knowledge, all of the nuggets of wisdom, all the gold that you have received through this experience. I mean, I lost my mom when I was 11. And so there was I didn't grieve her because I was 11. I didn't want to be different. I was, I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to stand out as a girl and, as a tween.
Right.
So I used my sense of humor like all through my high school 20s, and I was the life of the party, like just totally avoided all of that, all those emotions. And then it was like when I finally was mature, like reached my summer in my life, I could look at like, okay, yeah, I grieved my mom, which was my divorce, which triggered all of it. And I was like, well, I have no choice. We're going into it now. Like, let's go, Lisa. Let's just feel it all.
Right.
And then out of it, like I have my son, and it's just like all of, like with my mom, like I totally, like she's with me all the time.
Yeah.
And then I look back at what I did. If my mom was with me, like I was such a mama's girl, there's no way I would have done all the things I did in my life, like with traveling and traveling abroad for work, or traveling around my country for work even. And so just like being really in a place of gratitude for that. Like I lost my mom, which is like, it was hard, but she also like gave me freedom.
Right. Yeah.
And
being
she has
able to
my back.
yeah, and being
Everywhere I
able to
go.
celebrate her, right, is beyond just like having that gratitude for having someone like that you love so deeply, and that you knew you had got that in return. But even moving that forward, like, because I had that, right, like you said, that never goes away. And now look at what I can translate that into. Now look at what I can create. I couldn't even have I if she were still here, I probably would not appreciate her as much. I wouldn't have gotten those lessons. And now look at me, right? Look at, again, like the badassness that I'm able to be because of that. Because I can be so grateful for having had that person, that energy in my life, that again is never going away, right? I was just talking to a woman who lost her dad, and she's having a really difficult time, dealing with it. And I said, about him not being there. And I said, I believe that, there's a finite amount of energy, right? The same energy that existed, 10 generations ago is still here and will always be here. It takes different forms. It looks different and might feel different to different people, but that energy is always going to be with us, right? And so, how amazing is it if you can really embrace that and bring that energy into yourself and know that you're going to continue, to still be amazing with your dad, right? It's not, you know our minds get so fixated on, I need this person physically here in my space, right? To appreciate them. But yeah, I think, once we can balance out, that harmonizing of like that loss, whatever the situation was, into who we really are moving forward, that's like so beautiful, you know? And I, even with, again, that autumn kind of energy, I think about that harvesting. Like, you've put in the work, you've done the work, look at this amazing stuff, and now you get to pull all that in. You get to bring all of that magical shit you created, you get to bring it inside and do something with it, yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I love that well, of course you speak to energy, because that really is what gives me the most comfort in loss, is that law of nature, where when you lose something, well, it makes space for something else to come in, right? Like, it's not really a loss, it's just a transfer of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think finding spaces like, what you're doing, allowing people that space to, get to that point, right? To not have to have all the answers, but have a support system that it's like, okay, again, I'm going to give you the space that you need, but I got you, because inevitably we're going to hit winter again, right? And this time when we hit winter, though, we recognize the value in it, right? We recognize that there's going to be darkness. There's going to be times where we, again, need to go in and reflect, but that's part of the process. That's part of the cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I say sometimes you can go like from summer to winter and back again in a day.
well, yes, that too. Like, it is not, cyclical. It is not just, oh, I'm going to move from this emotion to that emotion to that emotion. No, it's not. And it is, again, a couple of the lessons that we've learned from other cards, especially like Wheel of Fortune, is that, no matter how terrible things are going to get better. And no matter how great you think, shit, oh, I figured it all out, inevitably something's going to fall apart. So kind of being prepared for that, right? And having a space that allows for that. And, now that's the perfect segue, I think, for you to then tell folks kind of how they can connect with you. You've mentioned sisterhood a couple of times. I mean, tell people all that you want to about what you do and how they can work with you. And I'm going to pop your website up here while you do that.
I actually have a masterclass coming up in January, a 3-day masterclass. And through that, we talk about the law of nature and the 4 seasons. And so next year I will, or it's coming. I talk like it's so in the future.
No, right. Just a couple of days away.
So yeah, in January, the masterclass will be January 12th, 13th, 14th, I think. Yeah. And it's called Good Grief. And we'll be navigating loss, divorce, messy life transitions, using Mother Nature, and being in a space where you truly get are heard, seen, heard, and valued by other women going through the same, similar situations. And so it's going to be an experience. not a typical like webinar thing, so that women who choose to can experience what it's like to be in circle with other women. I'm just reading Ish's.
Yeah, it is right around the corner. Yes.
Yeah.
It's coming fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's that, and then the program will be starting in February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I will say I have been in circle before with Lisa, and it was a lot of fun. We did do some dancing in there. So yeah, I do. I think that what you're doing is so needed right now. And I am, working on my own journey of creating those types of spaces as well, where, you know, it isn't just, I'm going to get you from, zero to joy tomorrow. It's learning to sit with that process and fully like allow yourself to just feel all the feels, right? Feel all the things. So Lisa, loss doesn't just have to be losing someone, correct?
No, it can be anything from losing someone, of course, losing a pet even. I mean, we love our animals.
Yeah.
Divorce or loss of a job, a loss of a career, or even just loss of really like life as you once knew it. I have a woman in my group who her child got a terminal illness, and it completely changed her life. Of course it would. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think, again, I mean, I think there are those big losses that we think about, that happen less frequently. But I think it's also important too, Lisa, and you can, speak to this as well. I think that smaller losses, right, or what we want to classify as smaller losses, can be so impactful as well, because we feel like, oh, it wasn't a big deal. Like maybe, I lost my job, or, I lost out on something that other people might feel like it's not as significant. I shouldn't put so much weight on it. I shouldn't, feel so emotional about it. But getting to that point where you are able to say like, no, that shit was important to me, and it is a loss, and I do feel like
Yeah.
to grieve that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like even pinpointing divorce, really, I mean, it could be a relationship with your best friend that you had since you were little kids, right? And it just not it happens to fall apart.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody has lost life as they once knew it this year, honestly.
Yeah, this is, I mean, 2020 on the whole is about dealing with loss, right? In all kinds of ways. And, Ish,
Thanks,
so much
Ish.
loss for this pandemic year. Yeah, and I mean, Ish, I can't imagine, Ish will actually be with us next week. And I can't even imagine, Ish is a doctor and she's on the front lines, and she's seeing like this shitty year unfold every single day, and the tragedies of it and the losses of it. And again, I feel like it's so important to give people that space to grieve. Like, and I don't want to say normalize it, but not make it seem as though like it's not okay, right? Like be able to handle, especially for women, right? We're supposed to handle so many things, and where does that leave us opportunity to feel our own feelings, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know what it's like in the US, but it's probably similar to here when you only get 3 days off if someone in your immediate family passes away.
Yeah, because that's plenty of time. That's plenty.
Yeah.
To get
Yeah,
your shit
totally.
together. Yeah.
So yeah, and it doesn't, that's not inclusive of all of the losses that we spoke to.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so I think there's a big effect of depression, and that carries on much longer than, because we aren't accepting it or normalizing it, or just
Right.
like making grief a part of our culture, really. I mean, there's cultures in the world that really honor the grief, the grieving,
Yeah.
and we do not have that.
Yeah. It said 1 week bereavement. Yeah. I mean, and if you think about that, how unrealistic that is for anybody, right? To be able to handle a loss and then just go back to, again, this notion of like business as usual. It's impossible. So
Yeah, and
so
some people believe
stop
it.
trying to do it, y'all. Stop even trying
Yeah.
to just figure it out. You just can't. So
Well, and you never know when it's going to hit you either.
right,
Like you might need to go to work right away.
right,
Then it'll hit you down the road
right. Yeah. I think I
too.
can send this link. Maybe if it doesn't go through now, I'm gonna post the link as well for Lisa. For oh, there it is. For your easy way for folks to connect with you.
Oh,
I mean,
awesome.
you can
Thank you.
absolutely go to the website um, as well, but this is a nice little intro item for you to connect with Lisa. And definitely, I mean, get more information about this, work that's coming up with Lisa. And, if you've got questions, if you're watching this later, and you've got questions, or you're looking for some resources or looking for some help, I mean, please reach out to either of us, comment here, and again, you don't have to go through things alone, right? We weren't
Exactly.
created in this world to do shit on all by ourselves. So it's so important that we know that we are supporting one another. I support you, Lisa supports you, we support each other. It's all love here. So, Lisa, is there any final things that you'd like to impart to folks besides make sure that they check out your website?
Well, I will put the direct link for the masterclass or
Oh,
the experience. It's not a masterclass, but I mean the 3-day experience that I'm doing. If that's all right, I'll stick it in the
absolutely.
comments so
Yeah,
people can check it out.
all the places. I'm all about supporting each other. So
Yeah,
we have to do this
I
more.
know
We
you
have to
are. I
support each
know.
other. So I'm so thankful, Lisa, that you gave us some time. I know you got to go get your son, so thank you so much for being here. And Lisa's gonna be around in the WTF group as
Yeah,
well. So if you've got questions for her, you can find her there as well. So yeah,
definitely. Thank you so much, Mel.
yeah, you're so welcome.
Always
And
a pleasure talking with you.
yeah, I love it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here. So everybody, have a spectacular weekend. As I mentioned, you will get to see Ish next week. So keep an eye out tomorrow. You'll see the announcement for that, and she'll be here next Friday. And yeah, send us your questions. Stay connected. Love you too, Ish. All right, everybody, stay magical. Have a great weekend.
Bye.